All right, let's see. We are live. 1 second. I'm going to check the audio. Okay. We're good. All right. So we today are looking in Bessemer, Alabama, which is just southwest of Birmingham. So with this area, I had already have a property out there in Fairfield. Going down a little bit further south, we're just looking for properties. I filtered on 3 bedrooms plus, specifically looking for properties that might fit the 1% rule. So let's see. I think I found this property 120. 234 Jefferson Ave in Bessemer, Alabama, 35020. And I figured to help everybody just sort of determine their buy boxes, I can go ahead and look for a property that is somewhat renovated. So let's take a quick look at this property. So center it a little bit so you guys can see better. Kitchen looks pretty much done for the most part. Got new flooring, some painting on the cabinets. You could put in a range there. They closed up the fireplace. That's smart. Yeah, this part looks pretty much turnkey. I'm assuming you can go in there and see what type of job they have done to the place. But for the most part, it looks pretty much renovated. What's that? I can't tell if that's just storage. Like, what is that going on there? Bathroom looks great. Little connection for washer dryer. Panel looks okay. They got a cage on the AC already. Great. That's good to know. Okay. All right. So that's pretty much turnkey. I don't even think I need to paint the place. So this is going to be interesting to determine what our buy box is going to be. So the next thing I want to do is I want to look up the county because I want to look up the FMR, the fair market rate. So if you go to Google HUD FMR, click on the first thing, you can go to access smaller FMRs, look up FY 2024 FMRs. This is in Alabama. This is in Jefferson County. And you'll see by zip code what the maximum rents you're going to get by zip code, by bedroom count. C versus 35020 with 3 bedroom, 2 baths. So you can go to 35020 and your 3 bed rent ceiling as determined by your federal government is $1,290, 1290. Let me write this one down so you guys can all follow. 3 bed, 1290. And then the 4 bed is 1440. Okay. 35020. 35020. This is a 3 bed. Okay. Now, didn't seem like there was space for a 4 bed, so I'm not going to get the rents for a 4 bed. The next most important part is you have to get the market rents. Now, if you go to affordablehousing.com, go to the owner section, go to the market rent estimator, plug in your address, plug in your bedroom count, you're going to see here that the average rent for 23 units within a 1.13 mile radius is $1,155. Okay, 1155. Let's write this one down. 1155. Okay, and that was within a 1.13 mile radius. Noting all these numbers down because my partners already know how to write. So let's do this together. 1003, 1041 in the city, 1041 in the city, and the county is 1492, 1492. All right, cool. Now you're going to see that the rent ceiling is 1290. So you might be inclined to say, hey, I'm going to underwrite this property with 1290. Now, unless you have a great relationship with the housing authority, you understand exactly why they will allow you to get 1290. You would probably be better off looking at probably 1150 to 1175 for rent. Okay, maybe max 1200. And you might be asking why. So let me bring up the rent reasonableness test. Okay, now this is from the city of Bessemer, the housing authority, and many housing authorities will have similar language here. Now, this is the terminology you care about. Here it says that all voucher units must meet let me see, I can just squish it so you guys can see it on Instagram as well. All voucher units must meet a rent reasonableness test. This means that rents for assisted units are not higher than unassisted units. This is done each time a unit is leased, when a landlord requests a rent increase, and if the fair market rent decreases 5%. Okay? This is very, very important because essentially it says you can't charge more rent to this tenant simply because they are a voucher holder. Understand? Okay. That's going to be very important. So when you compare your market rent towards the rent ceiling, it's much more prudent to take the lower of the two. And I'm going to do $1,175 just to be a little conservative instead of even going to $1,200. All right. Now let's look at the rehab on this property. The rehab on this property is pretty much turnkey. I might set aside some money for just in case like there's some things in the roof that I can't see. So I'll set aside like $1,500 for the roof just in case I can't see it. $500 for some landscaping. I'm going to set aside zero. Let me just do how much? 1616. I'm going to do equals 1616 divided by 5. So I'm going to assume maybe 20% of the house needs a little bit of paint at $3 a square foot, less than $1,000. It won't be more than that. For 2 toilets, maybe I want to replace high pressure flush toilets so I don't get any clog calls. So that's about $450 each. And that's pretty much all I'm going to have for this property. So that results in about $4,600 rehab on this property. Not much at all. Okay. That pulls in right here. Then I'm going to have the asking price. The asking price is $119,500. $119,500. All right. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get the finance amount. So let's assume we're buying this deal on a DSCR loan, which is typically a 75% LTV product, which means you are paying 25% down. And that means my down payment is going to be equal to my purchase price multiplied by my down payment percentage. And because I'm financing the 75% portion of it, my finance amount is going to equal to the asking price, subtract the down payment to the bank. And usually the interest rates are probably right around 8% right now for this property. Let's just say this is going to start in April 1st, 2024. 30-year term amortized. 12 payments a year. Okay. All right. Now, I'm not gonna have any more assignment fees. I might have a little bit of holding costs. So let's kind of come in here. There's no eviction on this property. I'm gonna do holding costs. My holding cost is gonna equals to my monthly PITI plus my taxes plus my insurance. And I'm assuming it's gonna take about 3 months to get this property fully rented out, just in case. And then my rest of the amount is going to be pulled from right here. My property tax is going to be $75 a month. So I'm putting $75. And then my insurance number is $93 a month. And I'm going to do 93 times 1.2 to make the insurance a little bit more expensive because I've seen insurance rates continue to go up and up. So I want to budget for that a little bit in advance. I'm going to set aside 10% for maintenance. So I'm setting aside $117 every single month in a reserve account for anticipating that something will have to get. And essentially a break-even deal of $37 cash flow a month. Okay, all right. $37. At least you're not losing money, right? This is assuming you get $11.75. And this is assuming it stays better. Cash returns 1% on we have $46, 5% down, etc. Now, if you say, hey, great, what is my upside? As you get closer and closer to, let's say, 1250, that becomes a 2.8% return, right? Could that be the case where you can get a little bit higher rent if the housing authority is a little bit more lenient? Sure, but I wouldn't bank on it. But at the very minimum, you know that, hey, your best case scenario right now is probably just cash flowing $100 every single month, assuming your cost of capital, which means you're financing this loan at 8% interest rate, is what it is. Okay. All right. So good to know what my upside is. But what a more conservative scenario is likely going to be this one. $11.75 for rent. That results in a little bit of cash flow, assuming you're setting aside all this money for expenses. Now, if I say, let's go back to $11.75, and I want to say, hey, what do I need to pay for this property to get roughly around a 8 to 10% return on my money. If I want at least 10%, I'm going to start lowering the asking price. Everything else stays constant, 25% down still. So the down payment will go down proportionally. And my finance amount will also go down proportionally with the price. So at 100 grand, this becomes a 5% return. At $80,000, this now becomes a 10.7. So let's up it up a little bit. So 82,500. So for me, I would say if I could get this deal for 82,500, that would result in a $241 cash flow a month, roughly, for a 241 cash flow, and that's roughly a 9.9% cash on cash return, assuming your rent was $1,175 and your bedroom count was 3, so you kept everything the same, and your rehab stayed the same at $4,600. Okay, good to know. Now, let's say you walked the property and you said, "Oh man, like this property turned out to cost a lot more to get up and running," which doesn't seem like the case from the pictures, but you never know, because once you walk the property and it's been vacant, what it's been broken into, what if something happened, you never know. What if you doubled it, right? If you doubled this property, now all of a sudden your cash on cash return went down. So now you might be saying, okay, if my rehab quote unquote doubled, I would still be willing to pay $75,000 for this rehab, assuming my rehab was roughly $9,300. See how this has changed your buying criteria, right? Even though you might have had a surprise, as long as you can attach a number to the surprise or attach a number to that problem, it's now solvable. It's just all a numbers game, right? Just depending on your criteria. Again, this is not investment advice. This is simply me showing you the work on how to adjust up and downwards the criteria so you can figure out what do you do in a situation when you get more information. How do you adjust your criteria? How do you adjust how you logically think about the deal without any sort of emotion attached to it? Just because, oh, I really love this home, blah, blah, blah. Well, do the numbers make sense for you and your partners? You got to think that through. All right. So let's just say, let's go back to the original numbers. Let's go back to 4,600. Also, let's not multiply by 2. Let's delete this to multiply by 2 button. And let's go back to the original number of 119,500. Okay. So we know that as is, 119,500 is not a deal. So in order for this to be a deal, quote unquote, is there another creative finance scenario where this might still work? And how I would go about it is you have to look at whether or not there is an underlying loan in place that, for example, can you take it over subject to, which means that you will be taking over the existing financing subject to. So when I looked at this property on PropStream, and you guys can do it too, look up the address, click on the details section. And if there is an underlying loan, usually you can look at the mortgage and transaction history and you'll see whether or not there is a loan in place. Now, this one says there's a loan that started in 2004, so that's 20 years ago, for 57 grand, 5.53% interest. But this property at 240 month term has a 20-year loan. So this property it should be owned free and clear because it looks like it was finished literally 2 weeks ago. So maybe they paid it all off. Now they're selling it. Interesting. Okay. So now let's assume they own it free and clear. Okay. If someone owns it free and clear, you can propose a seller finance deal, which means you're asking the seller to say, hey, I can give you the price that you're looking for if you can give me the terms that I'm looking for. So what would make this a deal for you, right? Let's just use 10% cash on cash return as the general consensus for it, right? What if you gave the seller, hey, how instead of me giving 25% down and borrowing from the bank, why don't I make you the bank? So pay 8% interest rate. I can afford to give you 30% interest. Because in this scenario, you're still giving $119,500, you will still be cash flowing $317 a month. Your cash on cash will be 9.7%, but your rehab is still $4,600, but you're still giving 25% down, but your interest rate that you're borrowing at is 3%. And you can tell the seller, hey, I'll balloon it in 10 years and I'll pay it off in 10 years or whatever. Completely up to you, but you'll be getting financing at a much more affordable rate for your cost of capital. So that's one way you can adjust and up and down the numbers to see what would make this deal for you. Because if you got a 0% interest, bam, it's like 13%, right? Okay. Another way to think about it is, well, what if the seller wants a higher interest rate? Sure, we can give you a higher interest rate, but then my down payment might need to be lower. So if you lower this to 10%, it's still not going to be good. Let's see, 4%. Okay. So another way to make it work is I can give you 10% down. And if you want a more higher interest rate, I can give you 4%, because this still results in a 10% cash and cash return. And really this results in a lower cash flow per month, but my cost of investment from the outset is actually a lot lower. So that's going to be good for you to pay attention to and really figure out, hey, what sort of options are you willing to provide to this seller so that you can appeal to them while also giving yourself a deal that will work and still satisfy what your partners might be looking for in terms of a cash and cash return. Cool? Makes sense? All right. So that's what we have, guys. We just went through the scenario for this property, went through 6 different scenarios, and we figured, hey, you can make this a deal. You paid for $82,500. We even went through a scenario where if the rehab doubled in cost, well, then you just got to lower your purchase price by $7,500, and you can still get a similar result from a ROI perspective. Now, if you were pursuing a creative finance deal and you want to turn the seller into the bank as a lender, well, then all of a sudden you can just tell them like, hey, what are you going to do with all this money? You're just going to let it sit in the bank, or would you rather collect interest on it? And this is going to be a really good way for you to talk through that scenario and say, well, I can give you the price that you want if you assume that no one's going to offer $119,500 for this property. Let's see, how long has this property been on the market for? This property has been on the market for 66 days. So they might start saying, well, yeah, sure, let's go for it. 66 days. It's been on the market. It hasn't moved yet. Have they dropped any of the prices yet? They've been dropping the prices on this deal from $139 all the way down to $119. So that tells me that they might be a little bit motivated, and this would be a good scenario for you to pursue. Maybe, hey, this is how I offer the creative deal. I'll give you the $119.5 so they don't have to drop prices anymore. But this is also something for you to keep in mind of, right? If you do buy this deal and you're looking for a BRRRR, just know that this is going to start affecting your comps in the surrounding area. So just pay attention to it. Looks like someone probably bought this property to flip. Yeah, they did. So they must have bought it cash and funded everything, and now they're losing money. So they paid $54,000 for this house. Let's see, September 11th. Let's see what the condition of the home was. Oh yeah, they flipped it completely. Yeah, brand new remodel. Yeah, completely different. Okay, good to know. So now you can see that a flipper probably remodeled this home, so they probably won't go for a creative finance deal because they probably want to get all the capital back out. Unless they're super desperate, maybe they'll go for the creative finance deal. But you're going to have to go for something like this, which they are unlikely going to go for, unfortunately. So that's how we go through all the scenarios. That's how we tease out what sort of scenarios that we're willing to go through to turn this into a deal or not a deal. And again, this is not investment advice, all right, guys? Like, I'm not soliciting any investments on this call. I'm simply showing you guys how to go through a deal, how to think through it without any emotion, and how to go through all the different scenarios, assuming you are adjusting the variables one by one to figure out what is a deal for you, quote unquote, and what's a deal for you and your partners. Because all I'm doing today is I hope you guys will take a look at this and you can just copy my homework, to be honest with you. Because I know how scary it is to get started. And I know how scary it is to think about, hey, am I going to lose all my money on this deal? And the only way you're going to feel a little bit confident about what you're doing is simply by doing the work, putting in the reps. And one of the easiest ways to put in the reps is by copying my homework. You can look at the same deal I looked at today using the same spreadsheet. Just DM me your email to Instagram at investwithkenthe, and I can send you the spreadsheet, no catches. I've been very fortunate and blessed. I've been given that spreadsheet by other folks, and I modified it to just fit how I underwrite deals and how I analyze deals. The goal is for all of us to get better together, feel a little bit less lonely doing it, so that when you go back and you're about to pull the trigger, you can look at your own YouTube channel and say, I probably know what I'm doing because I looked at 185 deals over the last 185 days. And these are all not deals. And learning how to spot what a deal isn't is probably a really important skill. And then if your partner asks you, why do you think this is a deal? Well, you can go point them to your own YouTube channel and say, I know this is a deal because I've also looked at 185 deals. This is me analyzing all of them. And these were all not deals. Might you have a little bit more confidence in your ability to spot a deal then? Might your partners believe you a little bit more? I certainly hope so. And the goal is to make everybody better. So I hope you look at the video that we did today, find one part, one sentence, whatever it might be, and just say it better than I did. Analyze it better than I did. Speak through it more with better clarity. Whatever you like. This is why we do this together. This is why I have the community. Thank you so much for tuning in to live today. This is day 185. I originally set out to only do this for 185 days in a row, and this is cool. I really enjoy this. Thank you so much for being a part of the affordable housing community. Without people like you, I would never had the home I grew up in. So thank you so much, everybody. Have an amazing day. And I'll be back here again tomorrow for day 186.